At the Polish Game Dev Summit Digital Dragons, Twitter user and game developer Brandon Sheffield of Necrosoft Games sat in on a presentation by Hirokazu Yasuhara. As the game planner for many of the early entries of the Sonic the Hedgehog series, Yasuhara has quite a bit of insider knowledge about the series' development. Luckily for us, that's exactly what he shared on that day. Get ready for some Sonic 2 development revelations in Lost in Time, the scrapped time travel of Sonic 2. Game Facts Special! Hirokazu Yasuhara's presentation was a bombshell. Drawings, diagrams, and notes were shared that revealed Sonic 2 had a particularly interesting feature early on in development: time travel. Sonic 2 was originally intended to take place across 5 time periods. There had been some speculation about time travel being part of Sonic 2's development for many years, mostly due to some zones that look eerily similar to each other, as well as the presence of dinosaur-like enemies in promotional material and the final game. You can see the Reds Badnik in this Spanish promotional VHS from before the game's release, and the Stegos in this early mock-up image that accompanied the game's initial announcement. There was also this explicit mention of an adventure that spanned different time periods in a scan of the Japanese Sega magazine, Mega World Volume 6. However, Yasuhara's presentation solidified the fan theory as fact, and he brought the evidence to back it up. Fixing a damaged future. According to the information Yasuhara provided, Sonic 2's time travel would have worked like this. Sonic chases down Eggman in a handful of zones in the present time. In order to escape and continue with his dark deeds, Eggman jumps in a time machine and goes to the past, labeled as Medieval Time in the slide Yasuhara presented. Sonic then follows Eggman into the past through the use of some kind of warp point, but the actual mechanics of how that would work were not explained. After Eggman causes some trouble in the past, he and Sonic travel back to the present, which has been damaged by their actions. Sonic then travels even further back to an ancient time through the use of a hidden shrine, changes the future once more, and then returns to the future for a climactic final battle in space. Yasuhara also provided development sketches that show how the game's West Side Island location would change from the effects of each jump through time, along with the names and locations of the levels on the island. Here's a breakdown of each time period. Now, or present time, contains Green Hill Zone, Wood Zone, Sand Shower Zone, Metropolis Zone, and Ocean Wind Zone. Future contains Chemical Plant Zone, Casino Night Zone, Genocide City 1 Zone, and Genocide City 2 Zone. Now 2, or Ruined Present, contains Dust Hill Zone, Rock World Zone, and Oil Ocean Zone. Ancient contains Hilltop Zone, Blue Lake Zone, Rock World Zone, Tropical Plant Zone, and Olympus. There's also a 5th time period slide that illustrates the game after it's been struck by a tsunami. Apparently, that damaging wave would have fractured and separated large chunks of the island while transforming Tropical Plant Zone into Tropical Summer Zone. Hilltop Zone and Blue Lake Zone remain in this diagram, while the other zones have been seemingly washed away. Additionally, there was the medieval time outlined in the story diagram, but it was unfortunately not part of the zone diagrams that were provided. Because of the vague brick textures and sconces present in the Madness Mountain concept art, it is believed that this could have been part of the medieval time period. There was also a Sonic 2 manga released in Japan to coincide with Sonic 2's release. What was probably very strange for readers at the time was that much of the manga took place in prehistoric times, dealing with the origins of Sonic and Eggman, where a normal hedgehog gets turned to stone and then comes out of the stones and is granted super speed to become Sonic, or something like that. I don't read Japanese. Anyway, the manga ends with a story set in the Middle Ages. Both story settings seem to come from the early Sonic 2 designs, though it's doubtful the designs influenced the actual stories told in the manga. Even the American cartoon Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, which was in development at the same time as Sonic 2, had a time travel storyline over 4 episodes called The Quest for the Chaos Emeralds. And in these 4 episodes, Sonic travels to both prehistoric and medieval time periods. Could this cartoon's storyline trace its origins back to Sonic 2's development? Tails did turn out more brown in the cartoons, thanks to the TV series producers being sent early Tails sprites as reference. So maybe other things carried over too? Then again, time traveling to prehistoric and medieval times aren't exactly original concepts for fiction. So it could be a coincidence. From the information provided, you can tell that the implementation of time travel at that early point in Sonic 2's development was not intended to be a game mechanic, but rather a method of contextualizing the game's story. Still, it's mind-blowing to think that going by their positions on these development maps, at one point, Chemical Plant Zone, Emerald Hill Zone, Dust Hill Zone, and Hilltop Zone were essentially versions of the same zone. While Hikaru Yasuhara and Yuji Naka had been lured away by Sega of America by the likes of Mark Cerny, the third pillar of Sonic 1's development, Naoto Ohishima, stayed behind and began working on Sonic CD, which had its own version of time travel. It had been speculated by fans for many years that Sonic CD and Sonic 2 were initially intended to be the same game, with the Japanese team working on a Mega CD port. However, we got our answer in a 2009 interview Mr. Oshima did with Gamasutra when he was asked to contrast the two projects and their design philosophies. Oshima said, Sonic CD was made in Japan, while Sonic 2 was made by Yuji Naka's team over in the US. We exchanged information, of course, talking about the sort of game design each of us was aiming for. But Sonic CD wasn't Sonic 2. It was really meant to be more of a CD version of the original Sonic. I can't help but wonder, therefore, if we had more fun making CD than they did making Sonic 2, because we didn't have the pressure of making a numbered sequel. How things changed. Looking at those diagrams, it's very interesting to see how the effects of Eggman's actions are represented through the zone changes, most notably between now and Now 2. While the landscape has been changed to become more damaged and fractured, you can still tell that Green Hill Zone becomes Dust Hill Zone, and Ocean Wind Zone becomes Oil Ocean Zone. Even more interesting is the fact that there is no ruined version of Wood Zone in Now 2. Well, at least from what we can tell with these images. The cutting room floor speculates that Wood Zone was conceived as the past version of Metropolis Zone, and this has been a thought by fans for many years. However, overlaying the islands from the different time periods shows that Woodland Zone takes place in the same location as Casino Night Zone. Other zones did end up making it to the final game, although their order and names changed over the course of development. For instance, Green Hill Zone was changed to Emerald Hill Zone, so as not to reuse the title of a zone from Sonic 1. Olympus possibly became Aquatic Ruin Zone, and Rock World Zone is believed to be Mystic Cave Zone in the finished game. Then, of course, there is Genocide City. That zone's name wouldn't have made it into the game for obvious reasons, but thankfully, the unsettling title came as the result of the language barrier. According to zone artist Tom Payne, the Japanese devs wanted a name that was edgy for that zone, and ended up going a little overboard. Its name was later changed to Cyber City, before the entire zone was scrapped, with part of it being used for Metropolis Zone Act 3. Another tidbit from that interview with Tom Payne is that he vaguely remembered the time travel concept from early in development and confirmed its existence. Curiously, while these concepts and diagrams are likely from a very early point in Sonic 2's development, before any significant work had been done, the ideas and designs for many of the zones from this period persisted up to the game's release. Just take a look at Hilltop Zone. It's the fifth zone of the finished game, but it contains many of the same visual elements as Emerald Hill Zone, along with things like lava pits and dinosaur-like enemies. Thankfully, we have some additional visuals to accompany the diagrams that give us a better idea of what these cut zones would have looked like. Concept art that can be found in Sonic the Hedgehog 25th Anniversary Art Book reveals that the scrapped zones Tropical Sun, believed to be the analog of Tropical Plant Zone in the ancient time period, and Ocean Wind, a present time period zone, would have been very similar visually. There is also the question of the Hidden Palace Zone, which, despite being revealed in the promotional material mentioned earlier, was cut just days before development wrapped, according to level artist Craig Stead. That zone, which has since been brought to life by the 2013 remaster of Sonic 2, as well as Sonic Origins, also contained the robo-dinosaur enemies known as Reds. Could this have been an example of an ancient time zone? Or maybe Hidden Palace Zone contains the ancient shrine used for time travel? We'll never know now, but the decision to cut the level so close to completion, meaning the zone itself was likely already finished or close to it, is definitely cause for some speculation. As for the future's epic final battle in outer space, it seems like it was envisioned as an expanded version of the Death Egg final zone in the finished game. This concept art shows Sonic running on what is probably the outside of Robotnik's Death Egg, with a planet and the inky blackness of space visible in the background. We would also see the Death Egg fully realized as a complete zone in the follow-up Sonic & Knuckles, which, along with Sonic 3, reused a lot of the concept art from Sonic 2. There was no solid proof of these cut zones' existence until the 25th anniversary art book was released, which happened to almost coincide with Yasuharu's presentation. But now, we have some excellent points of reference for the alternate zones across time periods. The things that could have been. Although Sonic 2's time travel concept was cut very early into the game's development, the evidence that has surfaced has given us a fascinating peek behind the curtain of this franchise-defining title. With the information shared by Hikaru Yasuhara, decades worth of fan theories and speculation was validated. That kind of mass info dump doesn't happen very often, especially for globally recognized franchises like Sonic. Sonic CD ended up being the first Sonic game to dabble with time manipulation, but it wasn't the last. The dreaded Sonic the Hedgehog from 2006, as well as Sonic Generations and Sonic Boom: Rise of Lyric all use time travel in their narratives. Time travel is even used in the Sonic fan game Sonic Time Twisted, which was created by the owner of GameFAQs Special, Overbound, and older fan games like Sonic SV2 Time Travel and Sonic Time Attacked. What do you think? Should future Sonic games feature time travel too? Let us know in the comments. Make sure to subscribe and like the video. Join the channel for exclusive episodes and access to the members-only area of GameFAQs Special's Discord server. Thanks for watching. This has been a GameFAQs Special.